What if League of Legends champions played in the World Cup? Today, I'm drafting 11 completely random league champions into a football team, building them into a real formation, and then finding out whether this squad could actually win the World Cup. But football ability isn't the only thing that matters. We'll be analyzing team chemistry, leadership, trust between players, lore connections, and raw power level to see whether this team becomes champions or completely falls apart before kickoff. And after seeing some of the champions we've drafted today, I genuinely have no idea which way this is going to go.
Player 1 is Jayce, the defender of tomorrow.
Stop the cap.
Vex, the gloomist. Ambessa, the matriarch of war. Quinn, the girl with her oversized parrot. Poppy, keeper of the hammer. Camille, the steel shadow. Tryndamere, the barbarian king. Jarvan IV, the exemplar of Demacia. Nidalee, the bestial huntress. Lissandra, the ice witch. And Galio, the colossus.
This appears to be a spicy squad chat. Regional chemistry-wise, this might actually be one of the most interesting squads we've drafted so far. Because unlike previous teams where everyone came from completely different corners of Runeterra, this team has multiple champions who are deeply connected to some of the biggest regions in League lore. Let's start with the strongest chemistry group immediately, Demacia. We've got J4, Quinn, Poppy, and Galio. That's an incredible foundation for any team, if I may say so myself. Jarvan is literally the crown prince of Demacia. Quinn is one of Demacia's most loyal and respected scouts. Galio has protected Demacia for generations. And Poppy, despite not always receiving the recognition she deserves, has spent centuries fighting for the ideals Demacia was built upon. These four instantly understand each other. They share values, they share culture, they share purpose. This is easily the strongest regional chemistry core we've seen in the series so far. If this team has a dressing room leadership group, it's probably sitting right here. Then we move over to the Noxian side of the squad with Ambessa. Now Ambessa immediately creates an interesting dynamic because Demacia and Noxus don't exactly have a history of getting along. In fact, if Jarvan sees a powerful Noxian warlord walking into training, he's probably already preparing for political negotiations before the warm-up even begins. That being said, Ambessa isn't some reckless conqueror. She's intelligent, strategic, and understands power better than almost anyone. So, while there's definitely tension here, I don't think it becomes outright hostility. It's more like two rival nations being forced to share the same dressing room. But if I ever see Ambessa, I'm getting revenge for my baby cakes, Caitlin. Then, we've got Camille and Jayce representing Piltover, and this is another fascinating pairing. Both come from Piltover. Both are influential figures. Both care deeply about protecting their city. But they approach problems very differently. Jayce wants to inspire progress. Camille wants to control it. So while there's definitely regional chemistry, there's also a chance these two spend half the tournament arguing over how the team should actually operate. Still, compared to some squads we've seen, this is a very healthy connection. Then we move north to the Freljord with Tryndamere and Lissandra. And this is where chemistry becomes complicated, because technically they are connected through the same region. However, the problem is that Lissandra is one of the most secretive and manipulative figures in all of Runeterra. Tryndamere, meanwhile, is a proud warrior king who values strength and loyalty above almost everything else. So while they share a homeland, I don't think there's much trust here. This is one of those cases where regional chemistry exists on paper, but feels much weaker in reality. Then there's Nidalee. Nidalee doesn't really belong to any major political faction. She's tied to the jungles of Shurima and spends most of her life away from civilization altogether. Which means she's kind of a chemistry wildcard. She's not carrying regional rivalries, she's not bringing political baggage, she just exists slightly outside everyone else's conflicts. And honestly, that might be useful on a team like this. But we mustn't forget Vex, who might genuinely be the funniest player to analyze in this category, because Vex comes from Bandle City, a place full of magical adventures, optimism, and wonder. And she hates all of it. She's lucky she hasn't ran into me yet, that's for sure. Anyway, as I was saying, so while most champions gain chemistry from their origins, Vex somehow manages to have anti-chemistry with her own region, which honestly feels very on brand. The funny thing about this squad is that there aren't many completely isolated players. Most teams we've drafted have felt like 11 random strangers. This one actually feels like several established groups stitched together. You've got the Demacian core, the Piltover duo, the Freljord pair, Ambessa representing Noxus, Nidalee doing her own thing, and Vex actively refusing to enjoy any of it. Overall regional chemistry rating? I'm giving this team an 8 out of 10. The Demacian core alone carries this category. There are genuine regional connections all across the pitch, multiple players who understand each other's cultures, and very few completely disconnected individuals. There are still some political tensions, there are still some rival ideologies, but compared to most World Cup draft squads we've seen so far, this team actually feels like a team, which is honestly a terrifying thought considering how powerful some of these champions are. Now let's talk about raw power level. And let's be real, this team is ridiculous. Because while some squads rely on chemistry, leadership, or teamwork to succeed, this one has another option entirely. They can simply overpower almost everyone they come across. Let's start with the biggest name immediately, Galio. Because whenever Galio walks onto the pitch, the power level discussion changes instantly. This isn't just a giant statue. This is a colossal magical guardian capable of fighting some of the most dangerous threats Runeterra has ever seen. The man is basically a skyscraper that punches evil for a living. And somehow he's sharing a team with even more monsters. Because next we have Lissandra. And Lissandra is terrifying in a completely different way. She's one of the oldest and most powerful mages in all of Runeterra. A woman who has spent centuries manipulating events from the shadows while helping contain one of the greatest threats the world has ever known. The scary thing about Lissandra isn't just her power. It's how intelligent she is while wielding it. Then we've got Tryndamere. And Tryndamere is one of those champions whose lore sounds unfair when you actually think about it. This man has survived through sheer rage. He has fought through injuries that would kill most people. And the angrier he gets, the more dangerous he becomes. If this World Cup ever goes to penalties, Tryndamere is absolutely the last person you want standing on the halfway line. Then we move over to Demacia. Jarvan IV may not be a god or an ancient sorcerer, but make no mistake, he's still one of the most formidable warriors on the team. The future king of Demacia didn't get where he is through politics alone. He's a battle-tested leader who has spent his life fighting on the front lines. Then there's Quinn, and Quinn's strength comes from precision rather than overwhelming power. She's not trying to flatten mountains. She's trying to eliminate threats before they even know she's there. Add Valor into the equation, and suddenly you've got one of the most effective scouts and hunters in Runeterra. But wait, Ambessa. She might be one of the most physically intimidating humans on the entire squad. This is a woman who has built her reputation through strength, warfare, and leadership. You don't become one of Noxus's most feared warlords by accident. If Ambessa tells the team to press higher up the pitch, everyone is pressing higher up the pitch. Then we arrive in Piltover with Jayce and Camille. And this pairing is fascinating because both are incredibly dangerous for completely different reasons. Jayce possesses some of the most advanced Hextech weaponry in Runeterra because he betrayed me. Meanwhile, Camille has spent years enhancing herself into the perfect operative. Jayce represents technological power. Camille represents precision-engineered efficiency. Neither is someone you'd enjoy playing against. Then there's Nidalee. And Nidalee is another champion people underestimate. This is someone who can transform into a deadly predator at will and has spent most of her life surviving in one of the most dangerous environments in Runeterra. She doesn't need armies. She doesn't need technology. She's dangerous all by herself. In fact, she's the type of bad bee that I like. Hit me up, shorty. Gra! Then we have Poppy. Now, Poppy might be the most deceptively powerful champion on the team because she's humble, kind, and doesn't seek glory. But she's also carrying one of the most legendary weapons in Demacian history. The funny thing is that Poppy is probably one of the strongest players here and would never admit it. And finally, Vex. Now, Vex doesn't look threatening. She doesn't sound threatening. She barely looks interested in being here. But make no mistake, Vex possesses incredibly powerful shadow magic and has abilities that make her far more dangerous than people initially realize. She's basically the footballing equivalent of someone sleepwalking into a fight and accidentally winning it. Kind of like Lee Sin, actually. Huh, go figure. Overall, this team has everything. Ancient magic, military power, Demacian legends, Hextech technology, shadow magic, shapeshifters, and a giant stone colossus that could probably defend an entire half of the pitch by himself. Raw power level rating, I'm giving this team a 9 out of 10. There are very few weak links here. Almost every player brings some form of elite power to the squad, whether that's magical strength, physical dominance, military experience, or sheer survivability. And if this team ever stopped focusing on football and started using their full abilities, winning the World Cup would probably become the least impressive thing they accomplished that week. Awesome! Now we move on to one of the most important categories in the entire World Cup. Trust between players. Because you can have all the talent in the world. You can have incredible chemistry. You can have unbelievable power. But if your teammates don't trust each other, the whole thing falls apart. And I'm not gonna lie, this team is surprisingly complicated because there are some players here who would trust each other with their lives and others who probably wouldn't trust their teammates to hold a water bottle. Let's start with the biggest positive immediately. The Demacian core, Jarvan, Quinn, Poppy, and Galio. This is the foundation of trust on this entire squad. Jarvan and Quinn have both dedicated their lives to protecting Demacia. Galio has spent generations defending its people, and Poppy is arguably one of the purest-hearted champions in all of Runeterra. These four aren't just connected by region, they're connected by shared values, duty, honor, protection. If things start going wrong in a match, these are the players who stay united. Then we have Jarvan himself. And honestly, Jarvan might be one of the easiest players on this team to trust. He's a leader. He's straightforward. You always know where you stand with him. There are no hidden agendas, no secret plans, no manipulation. What you see is what you get, which is surprisingly rare in this squad. Then we move over to Quinn, and Quinn is another incredibly trustworthy teammate. She's disciplined, reliable, and professional. If Quinn says she'll cover your run, she's covering your run. No questions asked. Then there's Poppy. And if anyone on this team deserves universal trust, it's probably her. Poppy has spent centuries helping others without asking for recognition. The funniest thing about Poppy is that she's probably the most heroic person in the dressing room and doesn't even realize it. If Poppy tells you she's got your back, you can probably stop worrying entirely. Then we arrive at the first major problem, Lissandra. Now don't get me wrong, Lissandra is incredibly intelligent, incredibly powerful, incredibly effective, but trustworthy? Absolutely not. This is a champion who has spent centuries manipulating people, hiding secrets, and playing the long game. Even if Lissandra genuinely wanted the team to succeed, half the squad would still spend the tournament wondering what she's really planning. And honestly, that's probably a fair concern. After her, we have Camille. Camille is interesting because she isn't evil, but she absolutely prioritizes results over feelings. Camille will make the correct decision. The problem is that the correct decision might not be the one you personally enjoy. So while teammates would respect her, I'm not convinced they'd completely trust her. Then we get to Ambessa, and Ambessa creates a similar problem. She's a fantastic leader, depending on your philosophical bend, a brilliant strategist too, but she's also a Noxian warlord. Ambessa trusts strength, she trusts competence, she trusts results. The question is whether everyone else trusts her, and I'm not sure the answer is yes. Then we've got Jayce. Jayce is actually one of the more trustworthy players here. He's ambitious, he's passionate, he genuinely wants to help people. The issue with Jayce isn't trust. It's that sometimes he believes he can solve every problem himself, which can occasionally create friction. Now, who wrote this script? Jayce kicked me off my own council. He ain't trustworthy. Like, hello? Anyway, we have Nidalee next, and she might actually be one of the easiest players on the team to get along with. She doesn't arrive carrying political baggage. She doesn't arrive with grand ambitions. She simply judges people based on how they behave, which means she can fit into almost any group on the squad. Then we have Tryndamere, and Tryndamere is fascinating because from a loyalty perspective, he's excellent. If Tryndamere is fighting beside you, he's fighting beside you. The problem is that his decision-making occasionally gets overridden by pure rage, and that's not always ideal during a World Cup final. Finally, Vex. And Vex is honestly hilarious in this category, because Vex doesn't seem interested in betraying anyone. She doesn't seem interested in helping anyone either. Most players build trust by actively supporting their teammates. Vex's approach is more, "Who are you?" which somehow makes her difficult to analyze. She's not dangerous, she's just emotionally unavailable. Kind of like your crush. It's okay, boys and girls, we've all been there. Stay strong, my dear lads and lasses. Stay strong. Overall trust between players rating? I'm giving this team a 7 out of 10. The Demacian core does a huge amount of heavy lifting. You've got genuinely trustworthy leaders, loyal teammates, and players who share a strong moral foundation. The problem is that they're sharing a dressing room with Lissandra, Camille, Ambessa, and several champions who aren't exactly known for openness. So while this team isn't falling apart anytime soon, there are definitely a few players checking over their shoulder when the tactical meeting ends. And there we have it, people. Our League of Legends World Cup draft. I decided to go with the 3-4-3 formation and put Camille in goal because all she needs to do is hook her wires onto each goalpost, then she'll be able to move across the goal easily in order to save incoming shots. Tryndamere goes right center-back because with his ultimate undying rage, he'll be able to chase down attackers relentlessly until he wins back possession, and then uses that rage to counterattack. Jarvan goes center-back because he can use his gap closer to cover any openings in our defensive line, and he can use his ult to trap opposition strikers before it's too late. Galio is left center-back because he's a big boy, plus his ult allows him to assist his teammates by flying to them no matter how far away they are from him. Vex goes left mid, because in the same way, her ult also lets her move across the pitch freely. Poppy stays firm at center mid, because with her hammer, anything's possible. She can knock all dangers literally out of the park, or stadium rather, securing defensive stability and high possession of the ball for our team. Lissandra goes center mid too, as her ultimate allows her to literally stop the game and freeze everything in its tracks. This means if things aren't going our way, she can use her ice to change the tide of battle. Quinn goes right mid, and Chachi is definitely our most valuable player. Her ability to utilize Valor to fly up and down the pitch as much as she wants means she can help out everywhere. She's perfect for football. And oh look, the traitor Jayce is playing too. Whoop-de-doo. Anyway, then we have Ambessa in strike. Because let's be real, her laser-sharp willpower, focus, determination, and work ethic is guaranteed to secure us some goals. Then finally, we have my bae Nidalee at left wing. This is a no-brainer, because her proficiency with her Q ability tells us she's perfect for crossing the ball into the box and creating opportunities to score. She'll also be our captain. Because like we discussed earlier, she's the only one in the team who has no gang affiliations and also isn't a moody brat. And that's it for today's episode of League of Legends, World Cup style. Let me know if you liked it and tell me what champions you want me to cover next in the comments. Until next time, bye-bye.